Is the Canon 7D Mark II camera of 2014 relevant for bird and wildlife photography in a world of mirrorless cameras in 2023? The short answer is yes. The Canon 7D Mark II is still a champion amongst champions, even in a world of mirrorless cameras in 2023. And if you stick around, I'll tell you exactly why, what makes this camera so relevant. And we'll also talk about some camera settings that will help you to click super sharp pictures with this camera. Let's look at the features and functions of this camera, which are relevant for bird and wildlife photography. We'll talk about the number of autofocus points, the autofocus speed and accuracy, frames per second, buffer size, and image quality. Before we dive into these things, I want to tell you that the camera is built like a tank, as they say. It fits very well in the hand, it's weather sealed, and it resists light, rain, and dust like a champion. The camera has 65 autofocus points, all cross type. Cross type focus points focus faster and more accurately than linear focus points, especially when clicking pictures of fast action and in low light. The autofocus speed is supremely fast. Now, obviously, that depends on which lens you use. So, if you're using the Canon 100 to 400 Mark II or any of the Canon prime lenses, it's highly unlikely that you'd ever sit and think to yourself that the camera's autofocus speed is slow. It will latch on to focus even in very challenging low light conditions. The camera can do 10 frames per second, which is incredible. Sure, there are cameras which can do 14 and 20, but 10 is not bad at all. I believe this camera can save about 20 or 25 raw images in the buffer. The Nikon D500 can do 200 images in the buffer. Still, I've not once have I found this 70 Mark II slowing down because the buffer is full. Even with an SD card, a SanDisk Extreme Pro SD card, the camera has never slowed down and I can just go on clicking at 10 frames per second. Whereas with the Nikon D500, even though it has that 200 raw image buffer, that is true only if you use the super fast and super expensive XQD card. The Canon 7D Mark II has two card slots, one CF and one for SD. And if you use either CF or SD, the buffer size and the frame rate work well together. Never find the camera slowing down. I clicked this picture at 12,800 ISO. That's ridiculously high. And still, the image quality is good enough for a double spread magazine print. Even at 3200, 6400, you will get good double spread magazine prints. However, if you're doing a fine art print, you really don't want to pump that ISO beyond 640. Because that's when you start seeing grains and noise, which kind of is not very pleasing on this camera. But anything within 400 or even 500 or 640, image quality is pretty special. Let's look at some of the features and functions on this camera that will help you to click sharper pictures of bird and wildlife. Now, when I'm clicking wildlife, I always, or anything for that matter, I want my focus to be where I want my sharpness to be super sharp wherever I want it to be. And for that, I cannot leave it to the camera to decide where it should focus. Try this. Click a picture of someone and have the eyes slightly out of focus and have a look at the picture. It's so much more difficult to establish contact, to establish an emotional connection with any subject that's out of focus, especially a living subject. So I set my autofocus area to single point and maneuver that single point over the eye of the subject. So that way, even if there are twigs and branches and leaves in the way, I know that the eyes of the subject are always going to be sharp. I set my autofocus mode to autofocus continuous, When I do that and I keep my shutter release button half pressed, the camera will continue to update focus every time the subject moves. Whereas if I set it to single or one shot, the moment the subject moves, I'll lose focus. So the continuous autofocus setting on a Canon camera is AI servo. When I set it to AI servo, when I half press, the camera will focus on the subject, but if the subject moves further behind or comes a step in front, it will automatically update the focus. It will not do that if I set it to one shot. You have this other option that says AI focus. This over here, the camera will decide whether it should be one shot or continuous. Not recommended, because if you have a bird perched on a branch, the camera is going to select one shot. Now, the moment the bird starts moving, it'll take a few frames before the camera figures out that this bird is in motion and it needs to start looking for focus more often. And as a result, you'll be left with several frames which are out of focus. There are some other very important but invisible settings in the autofocus menu of your camera. This has to do with subject tracking. I have another video in the description where I go through each and every one of these settings in more detail so that you can set your camera just right for any situation so that you'll always end up with super sharp pictures of birds and wildlife. I'm Girish Menon. And if you'd like to master the art of bird photography or wildlife photography, the good news is that you can learn photography from me from anywhere in the world through live video calls. Please have a look at my website www.girishmenon.com to have a look at the courses that I offer.